Welcome to another episode of Michigan Tech's Husky Hour. In this episode of Husky Hour, special guest Eric Arundel talks about all things relationships, including how to foster the great relationships in your life and what relationships look like in the COVID-19 era. Enjoy!
So I'm Dana Browning. I'm the Assistant Director for Education and Outreach at the Center for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing. So our guest, Eric Arundel, is here today to talk about relationships, all kinds of relationships. So friendships, work relationships, and romantic relationships. And he's definitely our relationship expert on the counseling staff. So Hannah, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Hannah is going to facilitate our discussion today.
Hello, I'm Hannah. I am one of the interns for the Student Mental Health and Wellbeing. It is a mouthful. I'm a fourth year and I'm a psychology major, so it kind of fits the bill.
You just want me to introduce myself, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
So I'm a mental health counselor here at Michigan Tech. And I'm not as practiced at saying the name of our new space, so I don't get a chance to say it very often. So yeah, I do love talking about relationships. It is something that I really enjoy talking about with people. And I think we have a lot of new challenges now with trying to make relationships in our world of COVID.
I thought it would be interesting, we're all trying to find new jobs after school and kind of create ourselves in those places. So Eric, if you were to join a new workplace, how would you take those initial steps to make friends or make those connections?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing to think about, and this is going to get into a bigger overview of all relationship things, but little connections make bigger connections, right? And so any little steps you can make to make a connection to somebody can lead to bigger connections later. Inside of a workplace setting, I'm always trying to be aware of what I see inside of people's workspaces, We usually put things in our spaces that kind of show a little bit of our personality, and that's a chance to make a connection. And every one of those little things, those little connections, create a little bit of vulnerability. I always use this analogy. If this is you and this is someone else, and you're at a certain distance of relationship away from each other, right? When you share something and you're a little bit vulnerable about something, then somebody else is a little vulnerable about something. What ends up happening is then you move a little closer, right? Those little vulnerabilities, that putting yourself out there, is what causes you to get closer and more connected to somebody. And so it can be even little silly things like having a conversation about your favorite pizza. If I said, I believe pepperoni pizza is the best pizza, there is, that's me being vulnerable in a very superficial, very small way, right? But it's still vulnerability. Now, someone else may look at me and go, you're completely crazy. Pepperoni is not the best pizza. It's, going to be something else, like a Hawaiian pizza, for example. But those people are crazy. No, I'm kidding. But the Hawaiian pizza, you might say Hawaiian pizza, right? Now they're being vulnerable as well and sharing a little bit about themselves, which then causes you to both learn something about each other and get closer. So that's the underlying piece of it. But like I said, in a workplace setting, looking at the office, look at the ways you can find connection with each other. I think compliments are always awesome. You see somebody wearing something and you think it looks cool. It's like, I like your shoes, or, cool shirt, cool tie. Those type of things can be things that are just little connections to make to people that can build the bigger connections later. But all of those little things can definitely add up, right? I think that's the one thing I tell the people too, is put yourself out there. You got to give it a shot. If you really are feeling lonely, you really want to make connections with people, you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to take a chance to do those things. And that's not easy. I mean, it definitely is, especially if you haven't done it much. It takes practice. If vulnerability creates connection and intimacy with other people, that connection piece, then even if you do it poorly, it's still being vulnerable, right?
So another question related to the workplace is, how should students coming into these new bigger corporations, or even a small family-owned company, hold themselves around their employer? What kind of persona should they have? Should they come off as friendly, or should you come off as somebody who's very quiet at first?
Well, I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I'm not sure of the appropriate thing to say when it comes to the career side of things, but I am someone that firmly believes that you shouldn't try to be anything. You should try to be you, as much as possible. I think it's, now within certain extent, we have to be appropriate inside of the workplace environment, right? But what it comes down to it is the more comfortable you can be being yourself, the more they're going to get to know who you are. You know, I use this analogy. If you create a persona, that basically is creating a different version of yourself that sits out here in front of you, right? Now, if people fall in love with that persona, do you feel the love? No, the persona does. This version of yourself does. The only way that you actually feel the love and the caring from other people is when you allow yourself to be fully there in the moment. And I think that inside of a workplace setting, especially with an employer, I want them to know who I am. You know, it's funny, when I came in for the interview for this position, there were, you know, I've passed that age now. I'm over 40. And so now I've passed that age where I kind of care and I'm worried about, like, I wanted to find the right place to work. I didn't want to just get a job. And so luckily I've learned that through the years, that now I just come into a place and I go, is this the right fit for me? You know what I mean? And so that in that interview, I was pretty upfront about certain things. You know, I'm going to be like this. I'm going to be like this. But yeah, I think it's better to just be yourself as much as possible. The more they get to know who you are, the more you'll know where you fit. So.
Yeah, and I've heard Eric say the same thing, talking about students that he's counseled and making friends too, that sometimes students just feel really lonely because they've put on this persona. And I mean, I think we all probably have done this before at some point, like, especially like if you think about like stereotypical high school teen movies, like there are all these personas, and that's just part of growing up, as you try on these different like faces of like, who am I going to be? Because you don't really know yet. But when you get to college, it starts to be like, no, I actually know who I am deep down, or I'm getting there, or at least you know who you're not. But then to try to make friends, people maybe join a club that they don't actually like, or hang out with people that they don't actually feel good around. And I think then we really get into that trap of really feeling lonely. And Eric, like, I'm saying all this right now, but that's all just stuff Eric has told me in the past. So I think it really, we're talking about workplace, but it also connects so much to like friendships.
Another question I had, well, I guess a little preface. I recently, like a few weeks ago, I saw this article in Business Insider about like how there's 4 different kinds of general personalities in the workplace, and like those personalities attract like different relationships. Like, for example, you might have like a very simple like yes or no, or you might have that person who you get to connect with more. And I guess it kind of led me to the question when I was kind of coming up with the agenda today, like, what kind of relationships should you create? Like, do you think there's better ones? Like, should you look for that person who is more acquainted in the workplace? Should you look for the underdog? You know, somebody who you see potential in?
I think personally, whenever I've been in the workplace, I try to find the connections with just about everyone I can in different ways. Like, there's different kinds of relationships, right? We have the bottom to top relationships with our bosses and the people above them. Those relationships are different, right? I'll be honest, I run into the president and on the elevator, we can chat about things, but he's the boss, you know what I mean? It's a different kind of conversation that I'm going to have with Dana. Those relationships, you know, you can be a little bit more light with them, but also being careful of like not saying certain things in the wrong way or whatever. You may be focused on those type of things. Then you also have those relationships with people that are at the same level as you are. And those are ones that I think are some of the most important relationships you can have, because they're going to foster a lot of growth and learning. You know, you can all be doing the same job at a place, but everybody does it a little differently and tackles it a little differently, and we can learn from each other. I think that's the most important thing when it comes to hiring people in a new place, is you want to find people that can learn, right? Kind of makes sense. It's kind of why we hire college graduates, because they've learned for 4 years, right? But being able to learn and tap in other people as much as possible is really, really important. I think finding that connection, that growth, you know, finding your tribe of people that are doing similar things, and that can be across different companies too, I think, right? I think that's another way to look at it too, is always being on the lookout for places that you can help other people. People love it when somebody can step in and offer help. And so if you can see a place that you can offer help, do it.
What are some ways that students can get out and make friends? I know we've talked about it on a lot, but I feel like there's so many different ways. It's hard to, tackle each way in such a small amount of time with everybody's different opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest that this question was much easier for me to answer last year. I think we've gotten to, it's a lot harder now. There was an article, I think, in the New York Times that I found really fascinating, and I wish we could adopt it right now in our society. And it talks about COVID pods. And it's basically this idea that you have a pod or a cohort of people that have similar beliefs as you when it comes to COVID. So how often you're like going out to eat or going and grocery shopping, and how you feel about masks and all, and find a group of people that have similar beliefs that you do, and find a way for you to stay with those group of people and hang out with them. And the cool thing is, the way the article was arguing about it was that within your pod, you really just are able to do whatever you want, and that pod is with what the group has decided. So that means it can be okay for you to hang out without masks in a certain space together, as long as the whole pod is following what you guys have decided as a group. As much as possible, we need to try to embrace that face-to-face connection. I've done research on loneliness quite a bit, and one of the things that there's two things that are necessary to defeat loneliness. One of them is that you need to have a shared interest with the other person, some sort of shared connection, which makes sense. But the other one is face-to-face. You have to be face-to-face. And so I think right now we're lonely. I mean, as a society, we just are. It's part of the deal. Now, there has been other research that has shown too, though, that doing things like this helps. It's not perfect. It doesn't fully take away loneliness. It doesn't solve the problem, but it helps. Now, here's the thing. You spend all day staring at screens, you start to lose your mind a little bit. But I think you'll find, and I have found too, that even if I'm spending all day doing work, and this is what I do meetings all day, right? Doing through Zoom. If I go and hang out with people from my small group or friends or something on Zoom later in the evening, it's different, right? We're hanging out. It's a different kind of feel. We're having fun together. I've also heard of other people that have done things where they just eat a meal together with Zoom on and just eat together. Or they just do their whole 3 hours of a night, basically just having Zoom on while they're doing everything, Literally you're studying, you're not even talking to each other, but Zoom's on together. So it feels like you're together.
I want to add on that too, what Eric is saying, face to face, in the winter, I'm thinking, who are like the one or two friends that I can still hang out with in person and do a pod thing? But fine, Kitty, you say it first. Do outdoor activities. But there's so much we can do here in this area, and like honestly, in the winter, I'm already gonna have like a scarf or neck gaiter around, and probably not gonna be like totally bundled up in my snowsuit, like hugging on anybody. So find some things to do. This is a great time to explore and like hike. I mean, fall colors now, and then thinking about outdoor adventure program has a ton of stuff you can rent, and then you can find stuff pretty cheap too, used in terms of snowshoes or cross country or downhill skis, or just even getting a sled and going out to Nara and good old fashioned sledding day with a couple of other people. Those would be great ways to get some of that in person.
Yeah, I love the outdoor idea. I think we went with a group of friends just, this past weekend. We went down to Baraga area and looked at some waterfalls there and stuff. And just, I mean, a lot of the research that has been shown is like outside is like the safest place you can be. I mean, just with the way air is open there and things like that. So yeah, I think so for sure. Getting outside.
So one thing I was thinking about is professional relationships with like staff or professors. And those relationships I really value. So I was wondering if you had any insight on that, like how to create them, you know, how do they even fall into place? I don't even know. They just are there. But
I just always believe utilizing office hours is huge. This is one I learned when I was in college myself, was that as soon as I would find that I didn't get a grade that I thought I would get, or I missed something, or something didn't click, I'd immediately go to the professor. There's some benefits to doing that. What you're showing, what you got to understand a lot of times is these profs are, they care so much about what they're teaching usually, you know? And so if you show interest in wanting to understand the material and learn from them, a lot of times that can make a huge effect. Now, there are professors that's just not the case. I mean, we all know that there's some professors that just, it's not going to click, it's not going to happen. But I do want to encourage people that a lot of times going out and just putting yourself out there, telling them that, hey, I'm struggling with this, can you help me with it? Gives them the opportunity to teach you some one-on-one stuff and help you with it, help you work through it. Also shows that you're interested in the class, which should help with grading, right? If it shows you're interested in the class, that helps too, right? Another thing to think about too is sometimes we have a tendency to see professors as above us, which they are, but you also got to remember too is without you, they don't have jobs. So there is, I mean, seriously, they just don't. I mean, they could be researchers, I guess, and some of them probably would love it, but there wouldn't probably be money for them to research because there wouldn't be the university to do so. So there, you are important to what's going on inside of that classroom, okay? You do matter. So when you start to get inside your head like, oh, I can't do that, they're professors, they're above me, just remember you're important too.
so if you were a student who maybe doesn't know how to put yourself out there, or maybe you're just intimidated, it's not really your thing, what are some maybe steps or like rules of thumb to help you do that, but still stay in your bubble, still slowly make those friends?
This is something that you can use for all of things, but for specifically for this, I think it's important to remember that anything that we do takes practice. And when you do something at first, you probably will fail. I have a 5-year-old. If my 5-year-old did something for the first time and she failed at it, would I look at her and go, well, you're so stupid, why couldn't you do it? Well, of course not. Why would I do that, right? But guess what we do to ourselves all the time? Whenever we try something new and we fail at it, we beat ourselves up, don't we? We're awesome at it. In fact, we're gifted at beating ourselves up. What I want you to do instead is give yourself some grace. Allow yourself to make some mistakes. Practice in safe, easy places. Like I tell people who are extremely socially awkward and uncomfortable, like have that anxiety about social situations, to go to Walmart and literally, as you're checking out, look at the person and go, how's your day going? That's it. That's all I tell them to do. Just do that. And here's the thing. That is the easiest, safest thing. You may never see that person again because there's so many people checking you out at Walmart, right? And those people, I don't know if you ever paid attention to it, they are like not paying attention to anything typically. Their whole day is this. Beep, beep, beep. You know what I mean? And there's really like, sometimes they don't even recognize the person that's there, that there's someone there. I've done this to people sometimes. If I'm really want to brighten someone's day or have a conversation, I'll do it with like, hey, how's your day going? How you doing? And what'll happen is it's almost like they shake out of it. You should watch them do this. It's kind of funny. They do this like, oh, I'm good. How are you? Like, it's like, because they're in this mode of like just doing the same thing over and over again. And so it's a safe way to brighten someone's day, start a conversation if you want to, or just leave it at that. Just how's your day going? Good. How are you? I'm doing good. Thanks. Done, over with. But at least you're practicing having conversations with people. You're getting some steps forward with things. People who say that that's too much for them, what I would say is, as you're walking across campus, keep your head up, look at other people, smile. These are small things you can do to just start that initial, because that's a conversation too, isn't it? Looking someone in the eye, smiling, that's a conversation. People are like, well, I'm not talking. It totally is telling people something though. It's telling people that I see you and I'm engaging you. I'm giving you a smile, People think I'm really weird, but I've kind of accepted and I'm like a full-on youper now. But whenever I go walking and a car goes by, I usually just do it's just kind of the thing now. Every time I'm walking, I'm waving to every car that goes by. And my daughter went with me. She's like, Dad, why are you waving to everybody? I'm like, why not? You know what I mean? Just start doing little things. And then what I think will happen is when you start getting a positive response to those little things, where you start to realize this is not scary, this is okay, then you'll be able to be more comfortable to do the bigger things. Yeah, I think the other thing to think about too is what's the loss? I mean, what are you losing out on by not reaching out and connecting? Keep that in mind. Like, there is a loss. Like, people are always like, well, it's too scary to go out and connect with people because I'm socially anxious. I can't handle it. It's too scary. Cool, but you're losing something. You're losing something by not doing it. So is the fear stronger than the loss? And most people would say, I can put up with the fear to avoid that loss. And I would say, good, then go out and put yourself out there because it's worth it.
Yeah. And on the flip side, another like adding right on to what you just said, one of those positive motivators is the value. And you've said it many times, like, you're giving somebody a compliment, you're engaging with them, you make them feel good. And so if that's a motivator for you, like, you're giving somebody else a gift by making their day or making them smile or reaching out and saying, I think you're cool. Like, if we all had somebody like come up and just knock on our door and be like, you're a really great person, like, that'd be super, super nice. We'd all have a great story to say every day. So if you can give that gift to other people, then that might be a road in.
And more than ever before, we need that stuff right now. I mean, people need positive lifts all the time right now because we're not getting it naturally like we would if we were seeing people. We're just not getting that physical face-to-face. And we need more of that lifting up and people saying positive things. And yeah.
So another quick topic that I wanted to jump in on was romantic relationships. Because we're in college, everybody's getting older. You start looking at that person or people or whoever you like, and you're thinking, well, maybe it's time. So do you have any tips on approaching people? Because that is probably the most difficult part, is putting yourself out there again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be kind of boring on this because it's the same types of things I've already said, but I really believe that the best relationships, if you're looking for a true relationship and not just a hookup type of thing, a true relationship is built on friendships and connection. That means honesty, because a great friend knows everything about you and has a great, there's the honest connection there. Whenever somebody does the like, well, no, I'm stuck in the friend zone thing, I always just kind of laugh because the more friends you're with someone, the more it can move on to something else, I believe. I don't think it really works the way that TV shows it typically. That like, oh, now you're a friend and you're always going to be thought of as a friend. And so I think being honest about who you are will mean that the person can connect with you on an honest connection level. So I just think that that's the first thing I would say. And then once again, getting yourself out there, connecting with people. I really believe that it's also very important to be respectful of other people and always ask things, be very upfront with what's going on. I think honesty is always good. Like, I think sometimes we get afraid of information, like information's bad. Like, oh, I don't want to know if they like me or don't like me. Well, wouldn't you rather know now and get it over with and move on? Or would you rather spend weeks sitting there wondering and worrying and stressing about it? So I think it's great to just go have a conversation with somebody. Hey, I'm feeling like some feelings towards you, and I'm not sure how do I feel about that? Where are you at? Is this okay that I'm asking you this, having this conversation? But once again, I don't believe you do that right away when you first meet someone. Like, hopefully you have some sort of relationship or connection already with them. There is also that possibility of, I think you're cute and I want to ask you out type of thing when from someone that's in class or you see somewhere or make a connection with. I think what I just want to let you know though is be courageous when it comes to this stuff. Confidence in who you are is the most attractive thing to someone. Always, confidence is always the most attractive thing. And so be confident in who you are. Be the most you can be, I guess, right?
I'll add too, if it helps soften the blow, when my husband asked me out, I thought of it as a practice date because I really wasn't in the mindset to settle down. And now it's, oh my gosh, 11 years later and 2 kids in the mix. And so the practice date turned into something, but the practice date also allowed me to I had recently gone through a little breakup, so I wasn't feeling great. And so it's just having that okay, practice date is good, or I'll practice ask somebody out or whatever. And, I'll just get better at it for the next time. And for me, that's really been a good strategy. I'll practice doing this and then I end up with a job or whatever. And, that can be a good way to protect some of the vulnerability. You can't do that the whole relationship, but at least for the first date or so is okay.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you're saying that I think is really good that I think people need to know is that movement is better than lack of movement. Give it a shot. Just do something. You will never have a relationship if you sit in your room all the time and never try. If you never make relationships or connections to other ones, you're never going to meet people. If you make one friend and then they have a group of friends, that gives you a lot of opportunities to meet other people, right? And then if you meet their friends, there's more opportunities. You see what I'm saying? It's like getting yourself out there, joining clubs, being part of things, gets you to meet more people.
In college especially, everybody's tackling X, Y, and Z 24/7, homework, school, sometimes jobs on the side. Do you have any advice on people who want a relationship but maybe they don't know how to balance it, or techniques for if they're in a relationship, how to balance everything?
Story time with Eric. When I met my now wife, it was probably the worst time in her life. She was my wife's a teacher, and so she was doing student teaching at the time, and she's a music teacher, which means that the expectations were a lot more than usual. So she was literally spending all day at a school, and then she still had all of her classes on top of it that she had to do. And so when she met me, it was literally I don't have time for this. What, we can't do this, type of thing. And so I just got creative, which I think you do when you're in a relationship. You just try to figure it out, right? And I thought she was cute, so I made it work. So I said to her, well, you said you're worried about your car not working, because she had said that she's worried about her car not making it through the winters in Minnesota. And so I said, what if I drive you to school every morning and then pick you up from school when you're done every afternoon? And so we would spend, it was probably about 15-20 minute drive in the car on the way there and on the way back. And that was kind of our time together. And I'll tell you something, if you know anything about me, 5:30 in the morning is not the way I work. I am not functional typically at that time, but you find a way to make it work when you care about somebody and want to spend time with them. So I just would say, think outside the box. What are things that you could be doing? Even studying with each other, even if you're in different majors, if you're doing different things or whatever, you can study at the same time in the same space, or even with just the Zoom call going, studying together. You can have meals together. Everybody's got to eat. And that was always a phrase we had in our dating time, was well, you got to eat, right? So there was always an excuse of we can get together and have a meal together for half an hour. There's always things that you can do. And let's be honest too, nothing motivates you to want to get your work done so you can hang out with someone than a dating relationship, right? I got to get my work done so we can hang out, and it forces you to get that work done even quicker, I think, so you can spend time. We are busy, and you got to make sure that your priority here is to learn, right? And so learn, do your job, get it done here, but also then you can have some time together while you're doing that. You can do other things together at the same time, I guess is what I'm saying.
And then I had another question too. For students who maybe are scared or are needing some help, maybe coming out or just finding out who they are, do we have any services on campus that students can go to or in the community?
Yeah, I mean, I really believe CDI is your best your best place to go. It's Center for Diversity and Inclusion. They have a ton of resources there. They're very open, loving environment, which I think is the most important thing right now. We also do have more people on this campus than people realize when it comes to people that have gone through this and been in the same situation. The main thing is to find someone safe that you can share with, to talk to, and then to reach out to someone that can help be that safe person for you. If you don't have anybody that you can talk to and you're uncomfortable because of the group that you have, and like I said, I think CDI is a good place. There are a lot of national organizations that are out there as well that you can check into. I'm not sure about what's in our community. I think there is a community organization.
Yeah, I'm not either. Yeah.
But I'm not sure how active they are now. That's my honest truth. I just don't know how active they are now. So.
Yeah, but I think that's important too, because sometimes students don't get that opportunity until they are on their own, which is sad, but at least they have that opportunity now. So I really wanted to make sure that people understood that, like, we have their voice and we can help them, give them their voice. And
for sure.
so that's probably the scariest part, honestly, you know.
Husky Hour is brought to you by the Center for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing. Visit mtu.edu/well-being for more information about programs, events, and workshops. Thanks for listening.